Inside America's Boardrooms, the informational show for board members and corporate secretaries. Brought to you with knowledge partners NASDAQ, the Center for Audit Quality, and PwC. Along with content contributors Equilar, Meridian Compensation Partners, Wilson Sonsini Goodrich and Rosati, Donnelly Financial Solutions, and the Society for Corporate Governance.
Welcome to this edition of Inside America's Boardrooms. My name is Ty Francis and I'm the EVP of Global Programs for the Ethisphere Institute. It's my pleasure to be back at the NASDAQ market site in New York's Times Square as today's guest host. So TK's been very nice and asked me back again, and the reason he's done this is because he wants to get back on his soapbox to talk to you about a current board topic. So here we are again today. I understand your topic du jour is board committees and their chairs.
Well, first of all, Ty, welcome back. It's always a pleasure. I hope you feel very honored that whenever I want to move over, I'm always asking you to come in and do this.
Well, listen, I think as many people tune in to see you, they're tuning in to see me, so it's great news for me. So thank you.
Well, when we talk about board committees and board chairs, first of all, a lot has happened in the last 5 to 7 years. There was a time where we just talked really about 3 committees: the Comp Committee, the Audit Committee, and the Nom/Gov Committee. And even then, there really, a lot of people have been very creative to lump sometimes the Comp and the Nom/Gov together. So, but what's interesting is today, I looked up on Equilar that there's over 800 unique name board committees, okay? So there's been a lot of liberties taken.
800.
800. So examples of those committees would be the Airline Safety Committee, the Clinical Quality Committee, obviously related to healthcare, Environmental Safety Sustainability Committee, the Technology and Innovation Committee. Those are examples of committees that people felt were appropriate for their businesses. We hear a lot of talk about risk committees, and we know financial institutions are required to have risk committees, but that topic keeps coming up because of cyber risk and whether people need separate committees. We're going to be hearing a lot of ESG committees because it is an amazingly fast-growing topic, okay? And I think you're going to see those committees forming. What's interesting is I'm surprised at how many finance committees there are, and I'm not surprised. In the banking industry, we always had a lot of finance committees. But also executive committees, okay? And executive committees are committees that will meet in between board meetings to actually take care of board business, okay? So that things can keep moving forward, particularly for those companies that only meet like 4 times a year. That's too much of a gap. A lot of times businesses need to keep things going. So they form an executive committee made up of management and certain board of directors. So, and then you always have special committees, and special committees are formed for an M&A deal or for a fraud investigation or something like that. Usually those aren't permanent committees, but they are committees formed by the board for the purposes of some special event of some kind. Now, the facts are that corporate law empowers boards to either by board resolution or by bylaws to form committees, okay? And usually those committees are then made available, the charter is made available to shareholders so that they can see why the committee was formed and what its duties were. Common law says that you can assign specific approval process to those committees. Most usually do reporting to the main board because in the end the whole board is responsible, but you can't delegate things like dividends or changes in shareholder proposals or anything like that. But there is a lot of flexibility within the corporate law and common law to be able to do any type of committee that you want. And then there are also SEC or exchange requirements as well that have to be adhered to. So board committees have sort of evolved, and we'll talk a little bit about how far they evolved.
So I've seen over the last 5 to 7 years at least that the agendas for board committees have changed quite dramatically. I mean, this could be part of parcel for the new technology in companies and new risks emerging. So would it be fair to say then, if the committee agendas are changing, what about the criteria for the actual board chairs themselves?
Well, I think this is probably the biggest challenge, not biggest, but one of the biggest challenges that boards have when it comes to board composition, is when they come to recruitment on finding people that can sort of replace current board chairs for board committees in the future. Perfect example, we've always had that with audit committees, okay? It needs to be a financial expert on the committee, and a lot of boards want all their committee members to be financial experts. So that's something you have to give consideration to when you're bringing a board member on. Well, comp committees now, the skill sets have changed significantly. People don't want to hear about executive comp from the executives or the HR person. They want to hear about executive comp from the head of the comp committee, okay? So that's a whole new skill set. So now not only do you have to know the complex business of executive compensation, you have say on pay, which you have to answer for, and then you have to probably meet with shareholders. So that takes a skill set that's unique that we haven't had to deal with before. So now if you're talking risk, you're talking cyber, you're talking, you have to think this through ahead of time when you bring that board member on what positions are they going to be able to fill, and can they fill a chair of any of those positions?
So are you seeing a lot of these board chairs now, not so to speak being forced out of their roles, or reluctant to take up the board chair role because of these new requirements?
Well, I wouldn't take a board chair rule that I wasn't proficient on, and I don't think anybody should. So, I certainly think that people are thinking that through a lot more, okay? Used to be, even for the chairman of the board, it used to be who has time and who, has the longest tenure. Not anymore, boy. That chairman of the board, look what happened with BP years ago. Who ended up speaking for the company? Chairman of the board, because the CEO wasn't around anymore. So these positions have really changed, and the thought that has to go into planning for board composition is much, much more involved than it ever was.
So a bigger need for board evaluations, I would think, then.
Board evaluations are certainly a big part of it, and we've talked about that on previous shows.
Time and time again. It's a shame it's not becoming de jure, as we said. So if you had to leave our audience today with 2 or 3 tips, especially for a board chair, or in particular a nom-gov chair, what would they be?
Well, first of all, there is no rules when it comes to the type of committees that you can form. Find out what meets your business needs, okay? And as long as you have independent directors and you have the ability to staff those committees and they're important enough to do, nothing prevents you from having a committee that is important to the board to contribute to the success of the company. So that'd be the first thing. The second thing, which I hope I got across earlier, is you must give consideration to these board chairs and board committees when you're recruiting somebody. You have to look at who has skill sets so that you have replacements for the future. And lastly, which you mentioned, is constant evaluation. The difference between a good board and a great board is those boards that are constantly evaluating themselves and making sure that they're always looking to get better. And if I had to leave 3 things, those would be the 3 things that I would leave.
Well, that's great. Well, thank you, TK, and thanks for your time today. It's always a great honor to come and talk to TK. I get a lot out of these shows, and I hope our audience do too. So TK will be back in this seat, same time next week, talking about another current board topic. But for now, my name's Ty Francis, and I've been your guest host for today on Inside America's Boardrooms. See you next time.
Join us again next week for Inside America's Boardrooms. Brought to you with Knowledge Partners, NASDAQ, the Center for Audit Quality, and PwC. Along with content contributors, Equilar, Meridian Compensation Partners, Wilson Sonsini Goodrich and Rosati, Donnelly Financial Solutions, and the Society for Corporate Governance.